Las Vegas. 1983. Caesar's Palace glittered under the stars. Velvet gowns sweeping across marble floors. Diana Ross, the supreme queen of Motown, was minutes away from taking the stage. Suddenly, Cheers struck backstage. A crew member rushed in. Pal? Clutching a pass with just one name scrawled across it. That name froze Diana in her tracks. She didn't scream. Didn't explain. She simply looked the producer dead in the eye and said, "If he's here, I'm not going on." One name, one grudge. And a multi-million-dollar performance nearly collapsed. That was the moment the world glimpsed the truth behind the dazzling smile and diamond crown. Diana Ross carried wounds no spotlight could hide. Now, at 81, after decades of silence wrapped in sequins, she finally speaks. No more hints. No more polite evasions, just the unvarnished truth. 7 artists who betrayed her, mocked her, and left scars that fame could never erase. And the first name, none other than the king of pop himself, Michael Jackson. In the 1970s, Diana Ross wasn't just a star, she was an empire. And within her empire stood a small boy with fiery eyes and a voice that could ignite a stage, Michael Jackson. Diana called him her chosen one. She introduced Michael and the Jackson 5 to the world, mentored him like a mother. He called her his second mom, and she even opened her home to him. To the public, it looked like a sacred bond. Unshakable, a queen and her young prince, but fame transforms love into distance. By the early 1980s, Michael was no longer Diana's boy. With Thriller, he became a global phenomenon, eclipsing even the brightest Motown stars. Slowly, Diana felt him slipping away. He skipped her events, ignored her calls, and stopped mentioning her name in interviews. Industry whispers grew louder. Michael resented being forever branded as Diana Ross's discovery. He wanted his crown, but without the queen who once carried him to the throne. Then came 1989. Diana was invited to present Michael with a Lifetime Achievement Award. Dressed in glittering sequins, she delivered a glowing tribute. Michael smiled, accepted and thanked Berry Gordy, Quincy Jones, his fans, even his chimpanzee Bubbles, but not Diana. Backstage, witnesses saw her freeze, eyes shimmering with unshed tears, before she whispered just 3 words, "Never again." Michael. From that night forward, she never mentored another male star. The scar was permanent. Michael Jackson, the boy she once raised as her own, became the first name on the list of 7 artists Diana Ross hated most. If Michael Jackson was the spiritual son who betrayed Diana Ross, Berry Gordy was the man who both built her throne and tried to chain her to it. He was the mastermind of Motown, a visionary who could spot diamonds in Detroit's shadows. And Diana was his brightest gem. From a poor girl in the Brewster Projects, Diana, under Berry's hand, became the Queen of Motown. The polished face of an empire, he chose every song, designed every step, shaped her image into the epitome of elegance. To the public, they were a power duo. Behind the curtain, however, their bond of love and control became a battlefield. Berry wasn't just her producer. He was her lover, her obsession. Diana later admitted, "He wanted me to belong to him forever." But that love was suffocating. He dictated everything, her wardrobe, her songs, even pushing her into Lady Sings the Blues, a role she mastered but confessed she never chose. By the late 1970s, Diana longed for freedom. She wanted creative control, ownership of her own destiny. To Berry, that was betrayal. And in 1981, when Diana signed a historic $20 million deal with RCA, the largest ever offered to a female artist, Berry smiled for the cameras, but fumed behind closed doors. He called her ungrateful. He told friends she had forgotten who made her. Heartbroken, Diana confided to a friend, "He wanted me forever. When I said no, I became the enemy." She never returned to Motown. She never again surrendered her career to any producer. Berry Gordy, her genius, her lover, her captor. That is why his name stands as the second on the list of artists Diana Ross could never forgive. If Berry Gordy was the man who crowned Diana Ross the Queen of Motown, Mary Wilson was the mirror that reflected the cracks in that crown. They were once sisters, alongside Florence Ballard, forming the Supremes, Motown's brightest jewel of the 1960s. From rehearsals in Detroit's Brewster projects to dazzling the world stage, three young dreamers rose together to international fame. But as the spotlight grew brighter, the shadows deepened. Berry Gordy chose Diana as the center, pushing her name above the groups. The Supremes slowly became Diana Ross, and the Supremes, to the world, it was recognition of Diana's brilliance. To Mary, it was betrayal. What was once sisterhood turned into hierarchy, with Diana basking in the light while Mary stood behind, unseen. The bitterness didn't fade when Diana went solo in 1970. It grew sharper. For decades, Mary Wilson gave interviews accusing Diana of selfishness, of letting fame twist her, even suggesting she played a role in Florence Ballard's tragic exit. Diana never fought back. She chose silence. But that silence carried pain. Then came the year 2000. A Supremes reunion tour was announced, a chance to heal old wounds. Fans rejoiced. But backstage, negotiations unraveled. Mary demanded equal pay and equal billing. Promoters and Diana herself refused. To them, the brand had survived because of Diana's star power. The deal collapsed. The reunion never happened. Mary's memoir reignited the feud, branding Diana as controlling and egotistical. Diana's response was soft, almost weary. She told Oprah, "I wanted to heal the past." She wanted to relive it. For Diana, betrayal from rivals was survivable. Betrayal from a sister left scars that never faded. And that is why Mary Wilson's name became the third on Diana's list. The sister turned into an enemy if Diana Ross was hailed as the Queen of Motown. Then Aretha Franklin reigned as the Queen of Soul. Two crowns, two kingdoms, and a music world too small to hold them both. For years, they maintained a fragile balance, polite smiles at award shows, carefully worded compliments. But beneath the glitter lay a rivalry impossible to hide. The tension exploded in 1985. During a televised tribute to Stevie Wonder, Diana, radiant, under the lights, stepped forward with grace and offered her hand to Aretha, a gesture of unity. A public olive branch. But Aretha turned away mid-note, continuing to sing as though Diana were invisible. The audience barely noticed. Backstage, it was a slap seen by everyone. Weeks later, Aretha delivered the dagger in words. In an interview, when asked about other female performers, she said, "Some people sing, some people pose." She didn't name names. She didn't have to. The world understood. For Diana, It was more than an insult to her voice. It was a denial of her artistry, her legacy, her entire identity as a performer. At another rehearsal, Aretha reportedly leaned toward a musician and quipped, "That's not singing. That's stage whispering with sequins." Diana heard it. She smiled, stayed silent. But later, she confided to a trusted friend, "She could outsing me, but she never outclassed me." From that moment, Diana made a quiet vow she would never again share a stage with Aretha Franklin. To her, respect wasn't about vocal power. It was about grace. And though the public adored both queens, for Diana, Aretha became one more name etched in the list of those she could never forgive. In the mid-1970s, Diana Ross and David Bowie often crossed paths at London parties. Late-night studio sessions, whispered talk of a duet that might have stunned the world. Diana admired Bowie's daring edge. Bowie admired Diana's elegance and poise. For a moment, it seemed they could create something unforgettable together. But the dream dissolved. In 1980, Diana released Upside Down, a global hit produced by Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards. It was bold, funky, and triumphant. Yet at a London party soon after, Bowie smirked and said, "Upside Down, just glossy nonsense for bored housewives." The room laughed. Diana wasn't there. But word reached her quickly. To some, it was sharp, British wit. To her, it was betrayal, especially from someone she had admired as a fellow pioneer. That weekend, she canceled all scheduled UK press appearances, retreating into silence. From that night forward, Diana never worked with Bowie, never revived the talk of a duet. But in every concert set list, Upside Down held its place, always the second song, unshaken, defiant. It wasn't just music, it was a statement of resilience. They could laugh, but she would not fall. David Bowie, once a figure of respect in Diana's eyes, became instead a scar she carried, not because he defeated her, but because he made her feel small at the very moment she was standing tall, and for that, she could never forgive him. In the early 1980s, Diana Ross made the boldest move of her career. She walked away from Motown, the label that had built her, and signed a groundbreaking $20 million contract with RCA, the largest ever given to a female artist at the time. It wasn't just a contract, it was a declaration Diana Ross was no longer simply a star under a label's control. She was a sovereign queen, free to shape her own destiny. And in that new dream, there was one name at the top of her wish list: Quincy Jones. Fresh from his triumph with Michael Jackson's Off the Wall, Quincy was the genius of the moment, the man who could turn great artists into legends. To Diana, he was not just a producer. He was the architect who could help her redefine herself. But when her invitation reached him, the answer was silence. Months passed with no reply. Then whispers began to spread. Quincy had declined. He reportedly told friends Diana was past her prime and too difficult to shape. Those words, "past her prime," "too difficult," cut deeper than any headline. For years, Diana had battled labels of being a demanding diva, a star too headstrong. She believed she had outgrown those judgments. Yet from Quincy, the man she admired most, they returned with devastating force. Diana never confronted him publicly. She never lashed out in interviews, but in her 1993 autobiography, she slipped in one chilling line. Sometimes the men you admire the most admire someone else. From that day, Diana Ross and Quincy Jones never shared a studio, never created the magic she once dreamed of. And in that silence lay the sharpest lesson even the heroes you look up to can turn away. In 1981, the world stopped and listened when Endless Love was released. Diana Ross's voice blended seamlessly with Lionel Richie's, creating a love ballad that not only topped the charts, but became a cultural monument. Fans believed this was just the beginning of a dazzling chapter, a global tour with Diana and Lionel side by side, night after night, singing the anthem of eternal love. Diana believed it too. She carefully planned everything: the wardrobe, the choreography, the set lists. To her, it was not just business. It was proof that when two stars came together, magic could be made eternal. But just as the contracts were nearing completion, Lionel suddenly pulled out. The public was told it was due to creative differences. The truth was harsher. Lionel had just signed a major solo deal, and his label wanted him shining alone, not standing next to a Diana Ross, still too powerful, too commanding. Sharing the stage meant sharing the spotlight, and Lionel chose to keep it all. For Diana, it was devastating. She had believed Endless Love wasn't only a song, but a bond of trust and respect. Yet for Lionel, it was merely a career milestone. She confided to a friend, "We created magic," and he turned it into a memory. From that moment on, Diana and Lionel never sang Endless Love together again. Not at award shows, not at tributes, not even once. For Diana, this was no longer about fame or artistry. It was about betrayal from a friend, someone she thought would stand with her to carry the song into eternity. And it was the silence, the vanishing without true explanation, that cut the deepest of all. Diana Ross, the Queen of Motown, the girl who rose from Detroit's projects to become an eternal icon of global music. She sang about love, light, and hope, but behind the spotlight, her heart carried scars. The names she finally revealed: Michael Jackson, Berry Gordy, Mary Wilson, Aretha Franklin, David Bowie, Quincy Jones. Lionel Richie were not only legends, they were wounds carved deep into her journey. At 81, Diana no longer seeks flashing lights or endless ovations. What she wants to leave behind is not only hits like Ain't No Mountain High Enough or Endless Love, but also the truth that every glory came at a cost. Each betrayal forced her to rise. Each rejection drove her to carve her own path. And every time she was diminished or dismissed, she proved with that unmistakable voice that Diana Ross was never second best. Her legacy is not just in gold records, Grammy trophies, or a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. It is in the pride of a woman who dared to confront, who forgave, yet also spoke out when the time came. The scars never faded, but they are precisely what made her immortal. And today, as she looks back, she no longer needs to hide, because truth, like music, resonates far longer than any lie.